People that have mass hallucinations all the time about a lot of things.
We're laying eyes on the actual gospel of Jesus.
Something truly astonishing has recently come to light. An extraordinary letter written by the Roman official Aurelius Lentulus. This rare document offers a deeply personal and detailed account of Jesus Christ. Lentulus was a respected figure within the Roman Empire, not only a contemporary of Jesus, but someone who encountered him directly through his official responsibilities. He regularly sent reports to Caesar in Rome, documenting significant events and individuals across the provinces. Yet this particular letter stands apart. In it, Lentulus provides a vivid and remarkably insightful description of Jesus, revealing aspects of his appearance, character, and presence that have remained largely unknown until now. In this video, we'll explore who Aurelius Lentulus was, examine his description of Jesus Christ, and place his observations within their historical context. Together, we'll uncover perspectives that could challenge and deepen how you understand Jesus, his influence, his presence, and his impact within the Roman world. And trust me, the revelations waiting at the end of this journey are not to be missed. Before we begin, take a moment to subscribe to our channel. By joining us, you become part of a growing global mission to build the largest platform dedicated to uncovering spiritual and historical truths from around the world. Now, consider this. For centuries, art has portrayed Jesus as a white man, an image so familiar that many accept it as historically accurate. But this iconic depiction is surprisingly modern. One of the most influential images, Head of Christ by Warner Sallman, was painted in 1940. Sallman, a former commercial illustrator with a background in advertising, created an image that would soon gain worldwide recognition. Its rapid rise to prominence was no accident. The painting was heavily promoted through partnerships with two major Christian publishing houses, one Protestant and one Catholic. As a result, Sallman's version of Jesus spread across the globe, appearing on prayer cards, stained glass windows, oil paintings, calendars, and countless other religious items. And just like that, a 20th century illustration became the face of Christ for millions. This widespread use of a single image highlights a long-standing tradition of portraying Jesus through predominantly white European ideals. Over time, this artistic choice has shaped how millions imagine him. But it also raises deeper questions about the relationship between religion, art, and cultural identity. Historically, Jesus lived in 1st century Galilee, a region within biblical Israel. As a Jewish man of that time and place, he would most likely have had features common to the local population: brown eyes, darker hair, and olive or brown skin. Yet because no confirmed visual records from his lifetime exist, the image of Jesus has been guided far more by cultural tradition and artistic interpretation than by historical evidence. Adding to this uncertainty is the Bible's limited description of Jesus' physical appearance. The Old Testament, for example, describes figures like King Saul and King David as tall and handsome, yet offers no comparable details about Jesus. In the New Testament, descriptions are indirect and sometimes seem to conflict. The prophet Isaiah foretells a Messiah with no beauty or majesty to attract us, suggesting an ordinary or unremarkable appearance. In contrast, the Psalms describe him as fairer than the sons of men, implying beauty or distinction. These differing passages have only deepened the mystery. One historical artifact often referenced in discussions about Jesus' appearance is a letter attributed to the Roman official Aurelius Lentulus. This document is said to provide a detailed physical description of Jesus Christ. However, scholars continue to debate both its authenticity and its accuracy. Beyond this letter, other historical writings claim to come from eyewitnesses or contemporaries who encountered Jesus. Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor of Judea during Jesus' ministry, maintained regular correspondence with Rome and reported directly to Caesar, placing him in a position to observe Jesus and the movement forming around him. There is also a letter attributed to the high priest Gamaliel, who is said to have come to believe in Jesus after the resurrection. This document reportedly includes a description of Jesus and is preserved in the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. The most detailed physical description, however, comes from a letter attributed to the Roman consul Lentulus, allegedly discovered in a monastery alongside other ancient documents. The letter is said to date to the 12th year of Emperor Tiberius's reign. Historical records do confirm the presence of a Roman consul named Lentulus in Judea around the time of Jesus' trial and crucifixion. His influential family is also mentioned by the Jewish historian Josephus in Antiquities of the Jews. Despite these intriguing connections, the authenticity of the letter and the accuracy of its description remains a subject of ongoing scholarly debate. The authenticity of the letter itself remains a subject of scholarly debate. According to the text, Lentulus offers a vivid and highly detailed description of Jesus, emphasizing both his physical appearance and his presence. Jesus is described as having a noble, animated face with fair, slightly wavy hair. His eyebrows are said to be dark and strongly arched, while his eyes are intense and deeply penetrating, strikingly blue. The letter notes that his nose is somewhat long, and his beard, though not very long and almost blonde in color, contrasts with his notably long hair, which is said to have never been cut. His neck is described as slightly inclined, giving him a humble and gentle bearing. His complexion, compared to the color of ripe grain, is said to radiate seriousness, wisdom, sweetness, and goodness without any trace of anger. Lentulus goes on to portray Jesus as a man of average height with a pleasing appearance, whose reverent expression inspires both love and awe. His hair is likened to the shade of an unripe hazelnut, smooth near the ears, but forming darker, glossier curls that fall over his shoulders. He is said to wear his hair parted in the middle, following the custom of the Nazarenes. The letter describes his brow as smooth and calm, his face free of wrinkles or blemishes, and his complexion moderate, enhancing his overall beauty. His nose and mouth are called flawless, and his beard is full and pointed at the chin, matching the color of his hair. Jesus' demeanor is depicted as a balance of authority and compassion. He is described as stern in rebuke, yet gentle and deeply lovable when offering correction. The letter notes that he sometimes weeps, but is never seen to laugh. His posture is tall and upright, with fair hands and arms. His speech is described as serious, restrained, and humble, earning him the title, fairer than the sons of men, drawn from the words of the prophets. This richly detailed portrayal closely resembles many traditional images of Jesus that have appeared throughout history. That resemblance, however, raises important questions. While Lentulus's account presents a compelling image, it may also reflect the artistic traditions or cultural ideals of later eras rather than the historical realities of first-century Judea. The depiction of Jesus as fair and somewhat European aligns more closely with the standards of later Western art than with what historians know about the region and time in which Jesus lived. Ultimately, this description highlights the ongoing tension between historical accuracy and artistic interpretation. Across centuries, portrayals of Jesus have often revealed as much about the beliefs, values, and theological concerns of the artists and their audiences as they do about the historical figure himself. The widespread circulation of these images, from classical paintings to modern popular media, has firmly established a particular image of Jesus. While this portrayal may not align with historical reality, it strongly resonates with cultural traditions and religious identity. Beyond written descriptions like the letter attributed to Lentulus, ancient Greek writers also produced detailed portrayals of religious and historical figures, including the apostles and the Virgin Mary. Much like their vivid depictions of heroes from Troy, these accounts shaped how people imagined important figures from the past. At the same time, they reveal just how complex and uncertain it is to reconstruct the true physical appearance of historical and religious individuals. One of the most notable modern efforts to understand what Jesus may have looked like comes from the study of the Shroud of Turin. Professor Giovanni Giudica Cordelia, a leading scholar of the Shroud, applied principles of forensic medicine to analyze this controversial artifact. Believed by some to be the burial cloth of Jesus, The shroud has undergone extensive scientific examination, though its authenticity remains disputed. According to Judica Cordelia's research, the man depicted on the shroud possessed striking beauty and an uncommon stature, standing at approximately 1.80 meters tall. His build is described as lean, balanced, and well-proportioned. Despite the damage and fading of the shroud, the face it reveals appears gentle and serene, with a broad, straight forehead, a straight nose with a slight downward curve, and prominent, slightly protruding cheekbones. The analysis also includes anthropometric measurements suggesting that this individual was physically superior to the average man. The estimated cranial capacity is about 1,575 cubic centimeters, placing it in the megalo category and implying a brain weight of approximately 1,492 grams, significantly above average. These findings suggest not only an impressive physical presence, but potentially exceptional intellectual capacity as well. Early church fathers of the 2nd century, such as Justin Martyr and Origen, drew on biblical texts to offer differing views of Jesus' appearance. Isaiah chapter 53 suggests a Messiah with no remarkable outward beauty, while Psalm 45 implies notable physical splendor. This contrast may reflect the idea that people perceived Jesus differently depending on their spiritual relationship with him. St. Augustine later proposed that each person holds a unique mental image of Jesus. He emphasized that, while there may be countless interpretations of his appearance, faith does not depend on a specific image, but on belief in who he was. A similar idea was expressed by Cyril of Jerusalem in the 4th century. He suggested that Jesus adapts himself to the needs of each individual, becoming a vine for those seeking joy, a door for those seeking entry, a high priest for those offering prayers, and a sacrificial lamb for those burdened by sin. This adaptability reflects Jesus' compassion and his ability to connect with people on a deeply personal level. In early Christian art, Jesus was often portrayed as youthful and idealized, emphasizing spiritual vitality rather than physical realism. Early depictions of Jesus often resembled the Greco-Roman god Apollo, featuring an idealized athletic body and a youthful appearance. This style followed the classical tradition of portraying divine figures as eternally young, strong, and full of vitality. However, a major shift took place after the Roman Emperor Constantine issued the Edict of Milan in 313 AD, which officially recognized Christianity and granted it legal protection. This historic moment marked a turning point in how Jesus was represented in art. As Christianity moved from a persecuted faith to an established institution, Christian art began to change. One of the most noticeable transformations was the move away from portraying Jesus as a youthful figure. Instead, artists increasingly depicted him as a mature, bearded man. This new image reflected Christ as the suffering Redeemer, someone who had endured sacrifice, as well as the wise and eternal teacher. A key influence in shaping these representations was the concept of akeropoieta, meaning images not made by human hands. By the 7th century AD, stories circulated about miraculous images of Jesus believed to be divine self-portraits created without human involvement. One of the most famous examples is the Mandalion, an image said to have been miraculously imprinted on a cloth by Jesus himself in order to heal King Abgar of Edessa in what is now modern-day Turkey. Revered as an authentic likeness of Christ, this image had a profound influence on how he was portrayed in Christian art. Another powerful legend adopted in Western Christianity between the 11th and 14th centuries involves Saint Veronica. According to tradition, she wiped Jesus' face with her veil as he carried the cross, and his image was miraculously transferred onto the cloth. This relic, known as the volto santo, or holy face, further solidified the now familiar image of Christ as a bearded, mature man. Together, these traditions played a central role in shaping the enduring visual identity of Jesus in Christian art. The influence of akeropoieta, images believed to be not made by human hands, and similar sacred relics on Christian iconography cannot be overstated. These images provided a visual template for Christ that spread throughout the Christian world, helping to standardize his portrayal as a bearded man with shoulder-length hair. Over time, this image became deeply embedded in artistic tradition, shaping how Jesus was represented across different cultures, mediums, and historical periods. During the Renaissance, European artists began to introduce a new layer to these portrayals by blending their own identities into images of Christ. In doing so, they merged personal expression with religious devotion. A notable example is the 15th century Sicilian painter Antonello da Messina. His small, intimate portraits of the suffering Christ, set against dark, simple backgrounds and framed by stone parapets, follow traditional imagery while also conveying a deeply personal and empathetic response to Christ's human suffering. Each work was signed by the artist, emphasizing his individual connection to the divine figure he depicted. A similar approach can be seen in the work of the renowned 16th century German artist Albrecht Dürer. In his famous self-portrait from 1500, Dürer presents himself with a Christ-like appearance, complete with a beard and shoulder-length hair. The image evokes the sacred, holy face, while simultaneously serving as a declaration of the artist's own identity. The monogram in the painting is deliberately ambiguous. It can be read either as Dürer's initials or as Anno Domini, the year of our Lord, further blurring the boundary between the sacred and the personal. This blending of religious symbolism and personal imagery was not limited to Europe. In other regions and time periods, artists incorporated local cultural features into their depictions of Jesus. In the 16th and 17th centuries, for example, some portrayals featured figures with Ethiopian or Indian characteristics. These images reflect a broader pattern of cross-cultural exchange, where global influences were woven into religious art. Despite this diversity, the image of Jesus as a light-skinned European figure gradually became dominant. Through European trade, missionary activity, and colonial expansion, this portrayal spread across the globe and came to define how Christ was imagined in many parts of the world, often characterized by fair skin and blue eyes. A striking example of this global perspective can be seen in Andrea Mantegna's Adoration of the Magi, 1505. In this painting, the Magi are depicted as representatives of Africa, the Middle East and Asia, offering exotic gifts such as porcelain, gold, and brass items imported from China and the Persian and Ottoman worlds. The scene reflects Europe's expanding awareness of the wider world, even as the central image of Christ increasingly conformed to European artistic ideals. Despite this broader global context, Jesus is often depicted with distinctly European features, creating a clear disconnect between his portrayal and his Middle Eastern origins. In some artworks, this tension is further complicated by details such as imitation Hebrew lettering on Mary's cuffs or hemline, elements that are historically inaccurate and culturally misplaced within authentic Jewish tradition. This habit of reshaping Jesus and other biblical figures through a European lens carries important consequences for how religious and artistic traditions are understood. The European image of Jesus reflects the cultural assumptions and biases of its time, but it also shaped how Christianity was presented, interpreted, and practiced far beyond Europe. As European traders, missionaries, and colonial powers carried these images across the world, they spread a particular cultural version of Christianity, often overshadowing local expressions of faith and understanding. Ultimately, however, the question of Jesus' exact physical appearance may be less important than the core message of Christian belief. Christianity teaches that Jesus' outward features are secondary to the promise of spiritual communion, the assurance that all baptized believers will one day encounter Christ in the heavenly realm. In that future meeting, believers anticipate a direct encounter that exists beyond our present concepts of time and space. The face they will behold is expected to surpass human imagination, reflecting a divine mystery and universality that cannot be limited to any single culture, era, or artistic tradition. This perspective invites a shift in focus, from debating physical details to embracing the spiritual and communal heart of faith. It serves as a reminder that while artistic images of Jesus are shaped by history and culture, the essence of Christianity lies in the promise of eternal connection and revelation, one that transcends physical form and earthly boundaries.